Eugene, I get a lot of people asking me what's happening with the boys here, who's back in training, who's not. Can you give us a little bit of update about...
Yeah. I mean, Carlos and Izzy are training. Kai started training this week, took a little holiday, as he should. He's the only one that actually won, so he's the only one that earned a holiday. So Izzy, Carlos straight back into training after quarantine. Kai had a bit of time off, so he deserves, he won. That's kind of the rule at the gym. When you win, yeah, you deserve a bit of time off. It was a well-fought victory, you won. When you lose, no, you lost. Come back on Monday. Dan's been training the whole time. Brad and Shane are in quarantine. So all the UFC guys, they're all kind of accounted for. In terms of them fighting, nothing really on the horizon, really. This is a funny sort of a situation where we're just in a bit of a lay period where we're waiting to see what happens. Yeah.
The team's spread out a little bit last time with Dan off on his own and that. Is your plan to try and keep them closer together?
Yeah, look, we do our best, but it's just not always logistical. Dan's like a main event fighter, semi-main event fighter. Alex is the same. Israel's the same. So to put guys of that caliber all on the same card is very difficult, because those are the kind of guys that get spread out because they're main event cards. They don't all go together, so that's very difficult. So, yeah, I mean, it's just the management side of it is difficult, but of course we try our best to get the best situation where we can get as many cornermen and support crew as we can there.
The fact that Volk had to pull out of the main fight with COVID positive, is that going to impact in any way about how it works from now on with the fighters from down under?
I would hope not. At the end of the day, we had 4 guys from Oceania fighting, and 2 still fought. One wasn't able to fight, and he was the main event, and the other one, Brad Riddell, he actually tested negative, and he still wasn't allowed to fight. So, and he was on a different card anyway. He was the weekend before, so it didn't really affect anything apart from obviously that main event spot not being able to happen. But like I said, the Americans have all had it. They've all, it's been rife. It's been through all their gyms. All their fighters have got it. They don't have the same respect for it, I guess you could say, as we do. The teams that are going to run into trouble now are the teams that come from countries like ours, some of the European countries, and the countries that have basically are safe and have taken a hard stance on it. When we go over there, we haven't had COVID, so we don't have any immunity to it. It's going to be more likely those teams that are going to run into trouble than the American teams. In the early stages of COVID, it was the Americans pulling out left, right, and centre. Now that's not going to be like that. They've kind of gone through it.
Would there be an ideal time of the year for you to have your boys ready?
July, August. Yeah, July, August is a pretty good timeline for us. Some of the boys will want to go a bit earlier, so June, July, August. But I'm not too concerned with getting them. It's time to regroup a little bit. Time to assess a lot of things, analyze a lot of things. It's time for the guys to internalize a lot of things and work on some areas.
Apart from the UFC guys, you've got fighters heading off here, there and everywhere. I just talked to Jenna Fabian. She's away to America.
Yep. She's off to the PFL in the $1 million tournament. She's going to make a run another run at that tournament. That's a real difficult one because you're 7 or 8 weeks between those fights. So she's going to do her first fight. She's going to stay in America because she's only got 7 weeks between this first and second fight. There's no point in her coming home, doing 2 weeks in a quarantine here, and then you have to go 2 weeks earlier because PFL have a 2-week quarantine before each fight. So they're 4 weeks, 4 out of those 7 weeks in between the fights, if she comes home, is going to be spent in a quarantine, giving her only 3 weeks outside the quarantine to train. So she's going to stay over, and then she's going to come back over for the third fight. So she's going to come home after the second fight and then go back over for the third fight. So I think that's a total of like 13 weeks away or something like that, like 3 months. Massive commitment for the coaches that are going with her. But this is the profession we chose, and this is what's required of us at the moment. So this is what we're getting done.
The bubble being open between New Zealand and Australia, how much does that help?
Yeah, pretty exciting. I've already got I got some promoters calling me straight away. I've already got Kevin main eventing one of the Eternal shows in May. So yeah, that's massive for us. That opens up more opportunities for these guys that are nipping at the heels of the Dans and the Israels and Brads. Kevin's a guy who could easily compete in the UFC right now and be like a top welterweight right now. So keeping him busy and keeping him chasing his goals is very important for us.
When you fight, you have a fighter like him, and he gets a fight on Eternal, for instance. Do you have to sign a contract for that, or can you keep it open so that if UFC opportunity come up, you can grab it?
Yeah, look, you in terms of the local shows and the regional shows, you don't sign it. You sign a contract for the one-off fight, but you don't sign a promotional contract. I mean, yeah, you shouldn't be signing promotional contracts for the regional and local shows that lock you out of being able to compete with these bigger companies. You just wouldn't do that, and these promoters shouldn't be asking that of their fighters. If they do want to sign you to a local regional show, there should be definitely a clause that can get you out of the contract should UFC, Bellator, ONE, these sort of organizations approach you. So generally, no, you don't sign a contract, just a one-off fight contract. So yeah, I mean, if a local or regional show wanted to sign you and commit you only to their show, then they would have to make sure that they're rewarding you really, really well. And they don't have the resources to do that, so generally it doesn't happen.
Blood Diamond, he won a world title.
Yeah.
He's talking about switching fully to MMA in the near future. Would you be able to get him a fight as an MMA fighter pretty quickly?
Yep, yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. I believe this Blood Diamond is we made an amazing discovery with Blood Diamond. We found out a few years ago now that he's probably far better at MMA than he was ever at kickboxing. But without having tested that, we just never knew. But he has a unique ability and a natural ability to wrestle, scramble, get up from the bottom. Like he just for some reason picks up MMA like really, really well. When you're like trying to train him for kickboxing and Thai boxing and all of this, and you're trying to teach him sound fundamentals, and then you're trying to supplement his crazy style and complement it. It's a nightmare sometimes. But in MMA, like he's just a natural. So he, funnily enough, can compete on a world-class level. He's only had 3 fights. But he gives any one of these guys the maximum amount of trouble. And that's the great thing about having UFC fighters involved in your gym. There's a yardstick there all the time. and you have this constant comparison, and you have this constant goal that you can live up to and try and reach. And Blood Diamond's, yeah, he's an amazing MMA fighter, and we just need to get him more opportunities and push him in the right direction. But I never answered the question, did I? Yeah, but I should be able to get him a few more fights and then push him in the direction he wants to go. But in saying that, what a way to finish your career of the world title. A world title is something very, very special that not all fighters get to compete for, especially nowadays. World titles are less and less, harder and harder to come by nowadays. And yeah, if you had to go out of the sport, then that's probably how you want to go out to. After more than 100 fights, a lot of regional and Commonwealth and Oceania titles and King of the Ring titles. I think he's won a ton of 8-mans or competed in a ton of 8-mans and then finished with the world title. Yeah, that was a very proud moment for us.
And I'm sure there's going to be plenty more to come.
Yeah, absolutely. This is yeah, for Bloods and for some of these young guys coming up. There's some big things happening.
On the local scene, you're keeping really busy. I know you fly out today or tomorrow down to Dunedin.
Yeah, and that's like so fantastic that I can keep, some of these guys busy. With BJ having unfortunately missed out on the PFL, on his PFL contract, because they reduced the numbers from 12 to 8, and then I've got Kieran Joblin, who still has a contract with 1 and still has 1 fight left, which we hope to do. To be able to keep those guys of that caliber busy on the local scene, props to the promoter and props to the guys that are stepping up and fighting them. That is how you become the man. That is how you become someone in the sport. That is how you get better. You see an opportunity to fight these world-class fighters, and instead of shying away from it and being like, you might have too much experience, he comes from a very good gym, he has very good training partners. Nah, you dive head first and said, put your hand up and say, you know what? If I beat that guy, then that puts me in that place. Then I beat a really good opponent. People have to start talking about me fighting for 1. People have to start to talk about me. Maybe I can represent New Zealand and the PFL. And that's why these guys that take these fights are dangerous. And I give them all the props in the world, and we take them very, very seriously. Even though they're local fighters, I have nothing but respect for these guys.
Hey, thanks once again for talking to us, Eugene. I know how busy you are, time restraints, and we really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Tony.
Cheers, man.
Awesome.
Cool. When do you fly out?